if we put AI in this beacon of art history, it's going to maybe trigger people. So let's be a little tongue in cheek about it and say like AI is literally destroying art.
Welcome to Locarno Meets, a movie podcast brought to you by UBS from the Locarno Film Festival. Paul Trillo is an ambassador for the future of cinema, a filmmaker operating at the very cutting edge of technology. He joined us to explain how we can all stop worrying and learn to love the AI bot. Paul, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
You're here in Locarno to do a talk about the use of AI in filmmaking. Your work is highly technical. I wonder, have you always been drawn to kind of cutting edge storytelling tech?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't think AI was totally a departure or random if you look at what I've been doing for about 15 years, which is always looking at how new emerging technology can open up new creative concepts. So, in pursuit of trying to create things that we haven't seen before or that feel fresh. And I feel like technology allows us to, challenge this idea that everything's been done before. And so that's what's really attracted me. And it's whether it's new camera technology or, synthetic media, I've always kind of been drawn towards it, but have looked for ways to embrace it more conceptual or ways that have more meaning. So yeah, it's become a thing, and I was not expecting it to become a thing when I first started playing with it. It was not divisive when I first started playing with it, and it's definitely become more of a spicy topic online. But I don't know. I think there's a lot that we haven't even really seen yet. I feel like we're still kind of scraping the surface, and we'll have to. You're not going to be able to wish this technology away. So I've just kind of naturally followed the progression and, pursued, it's what it can do that we couldn't do before.
Yeah, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf.
Yeah, exactly.
My kind of general take on AI, especially in the creative industries, is, if the artists don't learn how to use it, then it's just going to be the tech psychopaths who know how to use it.
Yeah, which, and they're going to dictate like how it's used, and it's going to be the least interesting version of the technology. Again, like I was just saying, I think it's still very underutilized. I think we still haven't fully seen it, and we need more creative people, more people thinking outside the box on how to use these tools in meaningful ways. Yeah, because it's just going to be, if we don't kind of shape it now, it will kind of the narrative will kind of go off in a direction that is just tech companies trying to make profit. And I think artists actually have a lot to benefit from it.
Yeah, it's like consciously ignoring it is like the opposite of seizing the means of production.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people just think they can like kind of close their eyes and think it's all going to go away. And it's not the most interesting way to engage with something that even if it's fraught with controversy, it's better to like face it head on than to just bury your head in the sand.
Over your career, over the last 15 years or so, can you give us another example of a type of tech that came along that really opened up some kind of creative porthole for you?
Yeah. About 10 years ago, when mobile phone sensors were getting better, I created the first mobile bullet time rig using Nokia phones. So we daisy chained together 50 Nokia phones and made this bullet time rig, like in the Matrix, where a bunch of photos are taken at the same exact moment, and then you can kind of like, move through time, in this sort of dynamic way, move through a frozen moment. And
sure.
We used mobile phones and had to design an app to make them all talk to each other. We had to design a special rig, and we did street photography in bullet time, which, up until then wouldn't have been possible. Like being able to get camera sensors like butted up against each other, like really create a compact system. And we did these very stylized portraits of people in New York. And that was, I think, the first. I had been always using visual effects and stylized techniques in my work before that, but that was the first time where I was like, oh, okay, we couldn't have done this up until, this camera at this size with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi connected. This technique wouldn't have existed. And so that opened me up to playing with other kinds of technology, camera tech, drones, extremely small slow motion cameras. And yeah, it was very exciting. But again, I was trying to do something that it uses technology, but hopefully it's not only interesting because of the technology.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was going to ask is, every time you kind of move on to new innovation, I don't want to say gizmo, but you know what I mean.
Pretty much, yeah. They are gizmos,
okay,
yeah.
Gizmo then.
Yeah,
doohickey. Every
Yeah,
time you
okay,
find
yeah.
your next doohickey, does that actively change the type of story that you're going to tell? Or is it merely another limb?
I try to create like a sort of consistency, or at least from the way I think about the films, like some sort of coherent thought process, which is trying to marry form and function together and to look for, stories or concepts that are kind of intrinsically tied to the technology. So the technology does shape the things that I'm pursuing, but hopefully there's a through line in like the thinking of how it's used. And yeah, hopefully again, it's transcending beyond the use of the technology, and it just becomes something beautiful or moving to watch. Because at the end of the day, after years pass, the specific technology is no longer as interesting anymore, and so you want to still create work that's lasting.
Well, it's a funny thing, isn't it, about innovating inside a space that's still controlled by tech organizations means that sometimes, are the innovations, do they end up being a bit of a brick wall because they're like, oh no, actually we've ripped that up and we've totally reinvented it over here?
Yeah, I mean, it can be, again, I think I still try to like create concepts that will transcend the tech, but even like this film I did a little over a year ago now, titled Absolve, that we shot at the Louvre, I would have done it. It would have been way easier now, and I would have approached it way differently, and it would have looked different had we used the tools today. And so I can understand people's sort of caution of like, oh, why should I learn this thing if it's just going to change immediately? But I wouldn't tie yourself to one specific process. I think like it's about staying curious
and being kind of platform agnostic.
Absolutely. Always stay platform agnostic, technology agnostic, even with cameras and lenses. Because before all this AI stuff where people are like, oh, what AI thing you use? It was like, what lens do you use? What camera do you use? And I don't really care.
But people have this funny relationship with AI companies where it's a little bit like if you bought a Samsung TV and expected Samsung to have made all the movies on it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Which was never the case before with visual. I mean, all this stuff is just visual effects at the end of the day. And it wasn't like you were using just one visual effects tool in your pipeline. It was always a myriad of stuff. And now I think there has been too much focus on brand when it comes to this stuff. And
you did get early access to Sora.
I did.
How did that come together?
It's a good question. I don't know. I feel very lucky and also and privileged to have used it. But it was also felt like kind of playing with dark magic or something. This,
it's straight into the Death Star.
Yeah, exactly. It was unsettling for sure using it, and seeing how disruptive it can be and is, but also like kind of a magical, with dark magic, there's still magic, and you're just like, you are allured by that. But I wanted to try to dig underneath the surface of it and try to, try to find something that felt true to my work. But how I got access, I got access to DALL-E 2 early on. Mm-hmm. I was like an early beta tester for that because back in early 2022, I saw the demo. I saw that this was going to be a game changer specifically for visual effects, and that's what excited me the most. Less based on like, oh, I can just make a panda astronaut playing chess on the moon or whatever.
As useful as that is.
Yeah, it is very useful for articles about
pandas on moons.
Yeah, pandas on moons playing chess. I saw that you can import your own images to DALL-E and alter it, and it matches the lighting source, the aesthetic of the image, perspective, everything like that. And it was like a very fast asset generator. And so that was very exciting to me. And I kind of just kept DMing the creator of DALL-E, Aditya, who's also on the Sora team. And I was like, give me access. I have ideas, give me access. And then they, after I guess a week doing that, they gave me access. And I immediately started exploring sort of stop motion ways of using DALL-E, where frame by frame, shooting video, then frame by frame, uploading each image, erasing part of it, downloading it, sequencing it. And it was very tedious at the time, but still faster than going out and making the props or whatever, designing things in 3D, and created all these kind of experimental animations or experimental use cases for DALL-E and AI visual effects. And the DALL-E team didn't even know that their tool could do animation or could be used in this fashion, and so they were very curious to like talk to me, and then just kind of kept me in the loop on all their early releases. But Sora was not something that any of the artists that were in their kind of alpha testing group were aware of. I think even a lot of employees at OpenAI hadn't known that this project was cooking in the background.
Doesn't sound like OpenAI to be
no, that's the whole irony of the name of the company, is it's not a super open company. So it did blindside everyone. Like I found out just the same way everyone else did.
I mean, you touched on it at the beginning, but OpenAI, a very controversial company. You can get sued by the Times and Scarlett Johansson 1 year. It's, solid work. I kind of wonder if inside the film world, if there's a sense of you as an apostate or, as a traitor, because there's so much kind of fear around it. And it became a very loud part of the strikes last year, is, the terror surrounding AI. And I understand that you're approaching it from a VFX position, but I wonder if more generally in the community, there's more of a sense of, no, that's a line you don't cross.
It's such a broad technology that drawing a line around it is totally strange, because you're going to just forever like keep drawing this crazy squiggle. It is hard to, there are definitely ways I don't use it and I don't think are interesting ways to use it, which are valid. I think studio executives, development people that don't have a great vision for stories or original ideas, thinking they can go into ChatGPT and just start generating scripts based on previous
that
work.
Can't actually happen, can it?
It could, yeah.
Well, it could happen, but no one's actually doing it. It's the stupidest idea I've ever heard.
You'd be surprised.
Okay, great.
Yeah. Unfortunately, and I thought, I was like, that's like way too stupid for someone to actually, I live in LA and I've been hearing that people do this.
It's like what Wile E. Coyote would do if Wile E. Coyote had AI.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so obviously like the wrong, least interesting way to use it is to regurgitate the past. But that's I think what a lot of the writer strike was about. I think writers should be given the choice whether they want to use AI as an assistant or not. There's definitely a lot of benefits a writer can have in organizing their thoughts, trying to find plot holes, whatever, just general organization, beat sheet stuff that AI can automate that doesn't harm the creative process. It gives you more time to like make sure the script is good. But it just depends on whose hands it's in. Actors, being removed from the creative process is also problematic. I think a director's relationship with an actor is a very special thing if it's a good actor.
Sure.
And you can't recreate that with AI.
No, but that's animation.
Yeah, I mean, but even animators are performing their. You'll see Pixar animators are performing, or they bring in actors and kind of recreate performance. But yeah, I think those are what the strikes were against. I think was initially right, but it created this whole because people just don't understand AI. They think it's just this one glob.
They think it's like
they
you
wrote
just
it
write
all
stuff in a
off.
box and then it pops up.
Yeah, and they think that's how all of it works. And it's much more complex than that. There's you can still put a lot of time and effort and energy into a project and use AI. You can still include a lot of artists and people in the process and still use AI. And I think there was a misconception that this is just wiping out the workforce. And so it unfortunately created a sort of more volatile discourse online. And it became a sort of culture war thing all of a sudden post-strikes, because strikes are unions, it's the labor, it's the workforce. I'm in the DGA, I'm like pro-union. But because that's seen as this sort of, liberal idea of work and labor, and AI then was like the opposite, supposedly, because of the way the strikes were positioning it. Then it became this thing for a younger generation that wanted to appear very, ultra liberal and engage in the culture wars to write off AI. Sure. And so the discussion online, even based on the comments I'd see on my own posts, dramatically shifted after the strikes. And I think a lot of it is just misinformation, misunderstanding, and so it's unfortunate, but I think it's just a process of transition and time.
I think it's also slightly a result of very aggressive, successful campaigns by AI companies to sell large organizations programs that actually those large organizations don't know how to use, and they buy them. But what I mean is they're like, it's now, and it can do everything. And there's a lot of money in it for them to have everybody believe that.
Sure.
But actually, the reality is that it requires craftsmanship and time.
Definitely.
And education and knowledge. And once people start hearing about those things, they get their heads around it. And they're like, oh, humans are using it.
Yeah.
And it becomes a lot less scary.
Yeah. The rational people will see that. I think there is this sort of, I don't know if it comes from marketing or what, but there is this illusion that certain AI companies want to pretend like, this is like a catch-all bulletproof solution to things, and it enables people to be lazier. But I'd like to challenge that idea, and instead of just being lazier, just reallocating time. And so when I post things and I share that other people were involved, it does throw people off a bit, because they're like, oh, you actually hired people in this project, and they actually don't know. It kind of disarms them in their their preconceived notions of like what AI does. I always found it funny with people still bring it up with the second Spider-Verse movie, which holds the record for hiring the most amount of animators of all time. They used machine learning AI to add the sort of pencil strokes around the characters' faces. It's 3D animation, but then it kind of is run through like a AI neural network pass, and people just saw that a little bit of AI was used in Spider-Verse and we're all up in arms.
Dude, or the director of Late Night with the Devil, who got in loads of trouble. And it's like, come on, man, it's a small budget movie.
It's a small budget. It's like, first of all, I want to see those same people try to balance the books on
exactly.
low budget indie. Also, they had an art department. They had a graphics team in the art department, and it was the graphics team's choice to use AI. So the same people that would have, spent the time to do that, it was a novel idea, and they're like, hey, what would retro graphics look like, according to AI? And so that was the graphics department's choice, and no one was like misplaced, out of that film. Even the film with the low budget still paid people, to make those graphics.
I wonder if in your film Absolve, it kind of feels like you're making a bit of a joke about this kind of Luddism, where somebody goes into the Louvre and through a scary bubble that looks like it's from the TLC waterfall video, all of the great art of the Louvre screams in agony at the concept of the future. It's a really funny, it's a really impressive, beautifully shot and made short.
Thank you.
But I thought what would be interesting is to know, okay, right, how does AI actually play a part in that? What's the process there?
In that film? I'm glad.
You're going to have to simplify it.
Yes. I'll try to keep it short because I'm probably rambling. But I'm glad the overarching concept came through to you. And it was definitely like part of the joke was like, all right, if we put AI in this beacon of art history, it's going to maybe trigger people. So let's be a little tongue in cheek about it and say like AI is literally destroying art. And so, we had fun with that idea. But it was, I think 82 or 83 visual effects shots, and AI touches all 83 of them, but like a lot of them are just traditional VFX that kind of are run or rendered through AI. But there are specific effects that I would have never bothered to pitch or attempted to pull off pre-AI. So this sort of melting painting look, that looks like almost like frame by frame animation of oil paintings being kind of redrawn every frame and melting. That's something that film had zero budget, and so
except you shot in the Louvre.
Yeah, which was a free location.
Oh right, fair enough.
And we had like a little bit of a sponsorship from the French government, and no money for post. So I did all that work just myself, and then the little money we had, we paid a VFX team to do liquid simulation stuff. But like things like the melting paintings was something that I used multiple different kind of AI tools, like frame interpolation, to like be like, okay, the painting looks like this at the beginning of the frame, it looks like this at the end of the frame, tell me what happens in between. And then we ran that through Stable Diffusion frame by frame, and reskinning, re-rendering things through AI, reinterpreting it through AI gives these kind of grotesque details and things that you wouldn't have found in any other rendering process. So I was really interested in both being able to kind of simulate Renaissance oil paintings frame by frame, but in this horrific way, but also the kind of hallucinations, the side effects, aberrations of AI, and especially in that kind of teardrop that becomes the blob monster. That's not that aesthetic, that effect would have looked fundamentally different had we done it in 3D. And so I was sort of interested in the things that are inherently aesthetically AI and not something that other tools would have given us.
Is most people who've just kind of fiddled with AI, what they tend to find is that it's constantly surprising them and kind of giving them weird things. Now that, presumably you're one of the most au fait with the systems out there, using them constantly, are you still surprised? Does it still kind of, does some things just seem to leap onto screen from the subconscious of the internet, or have you now got a handle on it and you can basically make it do what you want?
It's both. I actually like to be surprised by the AI. With Absolve, we were trying to really control our situation. I mean, everything was still kind of animated traditionally and then just kind of filtered through. So there was a lot of control being implemented, but there were things like the melting sculptures that I was like, how, if I crank it up, like how crazy can I get? And it gets you thinking about new ideas. And so that I think those surprises, I hope they don't go away as much as we're marching towards like better and better control. The control of like people, AI people, again, kind of what the actor strike was sort of resisting. I'm not that excited about that, the controlling of AI performance.
It's slightly pointless.
Yeah, because it's like, well, we've already
got
had
people.
that technology since the beginning of time, or recorded time. But I think control of your setting, of your aesthetic, of the tonality, the lighting, all those things are important for a director to have that control. And, you know, otherwise you start to lose your voice in the kind of the model, you know, you lose your voice in the kind of sea of latent space training data. And so a lot of, I think control will kind of help mitigate that, like, you know, so that your vision, your voice is retained to the end. But I think what everyone keeps saying AI is just a tool, but I mean, yeah, but it's a tool that works fundamentally differently because it changes your thought process. And so those surprises, the weird things, the side effects, the hallucinations, I think are an advantage to AI. So I hope there's still a way to balance both of those things going forward. And we don't try to just strive towards recreating reality. I think AI is interesting because it offers like an alternative to just recreating reality.
Cool. Well, it's been really interesting talking to you.
Alex, yeah. Thank you
Cheers,
so
man.
much.